This week has brought us some cool frosty mornings, some majestic sunrises, some beautiful cloud formations, and of course, more changes in the foliage. Some fall flowers have started blooming, such as this witch hazel and this common blue aster. And we're still seeing the occasional butterflies, such as this comma butterfly. There's a great nature documentary called The Hidden Life of Deer. It's readily available on YouTube, and I recommend it to anybody who's interested. The documentary shows that in suburban neighborhoods, the deer are able to distinguish between friendly dogs and aggressive dogs, and are also able to recognize borders of yards. It seems that the deer have learned that the sanctuary is a safe place from hunters, and that we are non-threatening humans. This allows us to observe them exhibiting their natural behaviors. After I crossed paths with this deer, she continued to forage for another 6 minutes until slowly meandering off into the thickets. Most of the warbler migration has settled down, but there are still some late yellow-rumped warblers migrating through. More of the life history is known about these warblers than other warblers because they don't always go all the way to the tropics. Many of them will stay as far north as New England, but along the coastlines. They eat exclusively insects during the summer months, but in the winter they are able to survive on berries. And as you can see, they rarely travel alone. There are still some ruby-crowned kinglets passing through, although the numbers are going down at a rapid rate. In another week or so, we probably won't see another one until the following spring. Hermit thrushes are beginning to pass through. Some breed down here during the summer, but most breed from farther north.
Not in your way, am I?
They are later migrants than other similar thrushes. It is difficult to see through this camera shot, but they can be distinguished from other thrushes by the faint beige eye-ring and the rusty tail. A great blue heron's been lingering around the beaver pond lately. Most go south for the winter, but a small amount will stay as long as there's open water to fish in. The highlight of the week, especially as far as birds go, are the Canada geese. They have been numbering in the thousands lately. They are not migrating south just yet, but they gather in huge numbers and commute from field to field to forage for food. A storm this week took down a snag. It wasn't very difficult to remove from the trail, but it did bereave some of the birds of one of their favorite perches. The main garden has lost most of its luster. All that remains are seed-bearing skeletons of plants. And 2 of the 3 transfer gardens are now complete. The roof of our shed is starting to get a few sprouts. And inside the shed, a mouse has taken residence inside of Matt's sweater. Needless to say, the sweater will not be removed until the following spring. My work week this week was sandwiched in between 2 weekend excursions. One was to Watkins Glen in the Finger Lakes region, and the other was to the Alleghenies National Park, which is mostly in Pennsylvania, but the northern end extends into New York State. I included the footage because much of it can be seen here at Spring Farm Cares or in the Mohawk Valley. For example, we had one ebony spleenwort plant at the sanctuary last year, but it seems to have disappeared this summer. But it was thriving in the crevices of these limestone cliffs. I also noticed some broad beach ferns, which we only have one patch of here at the sanctuary, but they were a little more common down there. The Allegheny River was loaded with common mergansers, which can also be found in the Mohawk River. They breed in Canada, then move a little farther south for the winter, inhabiting freshwater lakes and rivers. Common mergansers will dive for their primary food source, which is fish. I recall one winter, about 3 years ago, while waiting on the Lake Champlain ferry to Vermont, watching a merganser feeding. It would dive anywhere from 40 to 70 seconds, which I assume is average for this species. Notice as my buddy Phil flushes them up, how they run across the water to gain momentum, rather than shooting straight up like a dabbling duck would do. There was a fair number of ring-billed gulls in the Alleghenies, which can also be found here. The difference is, here I usually see them foraging in dumpsters behind grocery stores, rather than in natural habitats such as mudflats. As would be expected with fall weather, there's been an explosion of fungi throughout the land. One of the most common fungi of the Northeast is turkey tail. This beautiful shelf fungus is highly variable in coloration. At the sanctuary, this resinous polypore is still maturing. In this mushroom, I can't narrow down to a species, but the fact that it's growing on wood and densely scaly suggests it's of the genus Foliata. And for the same reasons, I believe this batch too are Foliata. These mushrooms, I believe, are slippery jacks, or Suillus luteus, but I need to look underneath to see a lack of gills to verify. I didn't want to disturb the mushrooms, though. And this is the emetic russula, named because in the past, doctors would use it to induce vomiting. This is not actually a fungus, but a slime mold known as wolf's milk. And the rest of these are the unidentified fungi of the week. The Allegheny Reservoir was low, exposing loads of shale containing fossils. Shale is a sedimentary rock that is formed when mud is deposited gently in areas such as river deltas, lakes, and lagoons. And over time, the mud is compressed to form this shale. Shale is typically associated with natural gas and is a common target for hydrofrackers. The shale and fossils here were formed during the Devonian era and Lower Carboniferous. The habitat it was formed in was a shallow sea. The most easily discernible fossils I'm seeing are these crinoids, which are a reef-forming type of coral, these brachiopods, which are superficially similar to today's clams, and the spiral-shelled ammonites. Ammonites are primitive cephalopods related to today's squid, octopus, and nautilus. And that wraps up another great week.